All right, welcome to another week of Team Prosperity Training. We do this weekly training every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. They are always recorded. Well, most of the time they're recorded unless we're going through personal stuff that we can't put out online. And those are listed in the Facebook group, in the YouTube channel, and also they are emailed out to you guys as agents as well. All right, so let's get into today's training. Before we do that, just a little bit of a reminder. Every week, we kind of want to review what we did last week so you guys understand what's available and how we're kind of positioning ourselves and our model and our business to be something that will attract the right types of clients and the right type of partners into your agency. So last week, we started on from zero, ground floor, to growth, build a career, a business, and an asset in financial services. And we're going to piggyback off that or springboard off that because I got some good feedback on that last training. And so today we're going to go into benchmark to breakthrough. So on the backs of last week's training, this is how to measure, master, and multiply your success in our industry, which is very, very large and lucrative if you know what you're doing. So welcome everybody. Today's training is called Benchmark for Successful. Hold on one second, guys. All right. Today's training is called Benchmark to Breakthrough because benchmarks are what's going to bridge the gap between what you're doing as far as your activity and what's actually happening, which is your achievement. Every professional sport, every successful business, every top performer uses benchmarks. You have to know and measure where you're getting or where you're not getting to know what's happening. They don't just say, hey, I'm going to try harder. They measure, they master, and they multiply what actually works. In our industries, most agents are going to drift because they don't know what success should look like week by week, month by month, or phase by phase. So today we're going to fix that. We're going to get into this, and hopefully you guys will leave this training with a roadmap, not just a wish list for the next 18 months, a plan you can measure, adjust, and grow from. Benchmarks matter, guys. Why do benchmarks matter? Because you can't manage what you don't measure. So in the 12-week year, which we use a lot to help us master, the value of the moment, being great in those time periods, along with that process, we have to measure what's happening. We have to be accountable to that measurement, and we have to reflect what's going right, what's going wrong. So these matter because it's going to allow you to know how far you're getting down the road or how far you're not getting down the road or to success. Benchmarks are going to do three things. And benchmarks are going to clarify your direction so you know what you're aiming for. They're going to expose the gap so you know where to improve. And you're going to build confidence every time you hit one. So you prove it to yourself that you can. All this is doing, and here's the best part, your benchmarks aren't about comparing yourself to anyone else. They're about comparing yourself to your actual potential. Let me let a couple other people in here. So remember, just like the game of golf, you're not competing against really anybody else other than yourself to make yourself better. Now you can get in tournaments or you can do all those things to go against other people, but essentially this is the same kind of idea. You're not comparing yourself against anyone else. You're comparing yourself against what's happening in your own realm, comparing it towards your potential. And the gap between what your potential is and what you're able to accept, once you close that gap and you stop accepting or justifying your excuses and not to get this done, not to create benchmarks, not to measure yourself, what you're going to find is those little excuses that you used to sell yourself, they're not justified anymore because you have big goals and you have activity and benchmarks that you're trying to hit. So here's the 4 phases of progression. This is really what we talked some about this last week. This is really what you guys need to be understanding and mapping out for yourself and your partners as they come in. This is not about, investing time, energy, resources into people and hoping that they stick. This is about investing time, energy, and resources into people who are trying to make it happen because you don't have the time to invest in all of your partners that come in. That's why there's a sorting process. If your partners are willing to meet some expectations and benchmarks that we have, that's a good leading indicator that that partner is serious about this and not just interested, but committed to make it happen. So here's the 4 phases of progression. Phase 1, this is foundation. And this is about building your understanding and your habits. Remember, habits are going to carry you through. Your motivation and inspiration for doing this business will change. It's not always going to be there. So what's always going to be there is the habits you form, or the whether those are good or bad. Remember, we talk about this time and time again. The brain loves to do whatever it's already doing, whether that's bad or good. So if you set it on a good course and you develop good habits and you build that understanding in the first 90 days of coming in or relaunching your business, that is it, all that we're looking for in phase 1. It's a foundational phase. You can't build anything without a foundation. So this is really about having a focus on education, consistency, and mindset. That's the first foundational phase. This is where it all begins. You're learning the business, you're learning the tools, and you're learning how to build the right daily rhythm. If you build the right daily rhythm and you have consistent activity over X period of time, things are going to happen in your business. The reason that agents don't see things happen is, one or more variable reasons. And a lot of that goes back to they didn't build the proper foundation to launch their business. This is what you're looking for, determining your personal benchmarks in phase 1. Phase 1 is all about, attending team trainings, webinars. Remember, that development, that learning process is going to come from, attending meetings, attending webinars, reviewing master classes, taking some of those guides that we have and going through those. Those guides are designed to help prospects make buying decisions and also help you as agents learn how to talk about and sell not the product, but the solution inside that guide. Learn how to explain our solutions, our strategies, and our processes clearly. Our main goal is to understand what we do and then break it down into the most elementary language possible so that the main street, the other people that we can talk to about these solutions and strategies, can understand at an elementary level. And if they do, they will ask you questions. If they don't understand what you're talking about, they're not going to ask you questions. They're going to paralyze and basically check out of the conversation. In this foundational phase 1, you also want to complete multiple practice presentations or reports, depending on what strategy or solution you're really concentrated on, even if this is with friends or family. And we encourage that in the beginning to get those practice presentations done. So who cares about you? Who cares about your success that would go through some of this stuff? Now, what do we see at the backs of this? Well, some people are interested in things like tax-free retirement or whatever it is that we're talking about. But the goal and the objective is not to sell your friends and family a product. It's to get practice presentations so that you can see that we're doing the same thing over and over and over again to give you the confidence to go out and at some point start doing it for yourself and then start doing it for your agency as it builds out. And then also in the foundational phase, you want to share educational pieces, posts, guides, IDASides every week. The more that you can start to get information out, the more that you can start talking about what you do. Remember, contacts equal contracts. More people you talk to, the more people that you will create cycles of communication and outcomes. Some of those outcomes will be positive, some of those will be negative, but through the process of what you're doing you're creating enough positive outcomes and you're concentrating on the yeses, on what's happening positive in your business. And then one of the biggest things and the habits that if you develop will greatly help your business, follow up with everyone you've shared the information with. Follow up creates fortunes. It's going to be the difference between, $50,000 earner and $250,000 earner. Who's going to follow up and who's going to get and stay in front of those people with the information that you shared. So in phase 1 of the foundational kind of starting period or restarting period, you have a mindset benchmark. You're understanding that you're not selling products, you're solving financial problems. And then what you start to think about is not how much you're going to make on this. Hey, if I don't reach this person, if I don't help this person, what's their financial life going to look like? And when you get mission driven and mission based, it gives you a power position. It's a lot easier to go into those conversations because you're not worried about yourself anymore. You're worried about if I don't do this for this person, what's going to happen to them? And you have a reflection prompt in phase 1, this foundational starting or restarting period. You want to rate yourself 1 through 10 and what you're doing in the consistency of learning. What one new habit will you commit to this week? Remember, learning and then implementing what you're learning is an important part of the foundational process. And then if you can do that and then teach other people, learning and building are the two biggest like 1-2 combination punches that's going to find you success in this industry. And then once you're out of that phase one, that foundation, you got your foundation built, you've got did the things, you've reached those benchmarks, and now it's time to go into phase two. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where traction builds credibility and results. This is months 4 through 9. So you're out of that 90-day madman cycle of learning and developing and creating habits. Now we're going to create some traction. We're going to build credibility and start building the results. Your focus in phase two, guys, is the implementation and activity that leads to outcomes. It's not just about learning. It's not just about practicing like in the first phase. It's about actually making and creating some outcomes and some results. This is where you start turning your knowledge into motions and results. What are the benchmarks in phase two? Well, they're a little bit different than phase one, but they're still along the same lines of creating benchmarks, measuring yourself, and then when you've completed those benchmarks, understanding that you're ready to move on to the next phase. This phase is all about conducting, prospect meetings, client meetings. Conduct 3 to 5 of those meetings weekly. You get into the habit of creating contacts, creating communication, and creating meetings. You'll get clients, you'll get partners, whatever your area of concentration on is for that meeting. Have enough meetings. If you have white space on your calendar, you start looking and doubting your ability to do this, the industry's ability to return what you thought it would to you, and then you're just going to get scared and drift and quit. So in the beginning stages, yeah, you really want to have the activity, and the activity in phase two is starting to get those client or prospect meetings weekly. Get your first 5 clients. It's easy to get clients once you get your first few. First few are the hardest. And then once you understand, hey, I can start looking at my client list and I can start developing a persona around that. Hey, this person, bought multiple products from me. This person's happy. They referred over. What is it about this person that made a good persona? And then you can create that persona, create messages that resonate with that persona, and then find wherever that persona is online or offline, start having them raise their hand. This is also where you want to start thinking about moving from a production mentality to starting to adopt a distribution mentality, because you want to also bring some partners in. Partners have markets they open up. They're going to have time, energy, resources they invest into their business. You can only go so far, as even if you're best producer in the world, you're only going to go so far. You need a team around you if you're going to build distribution. And then you want to begin developing an online presence, LinkedIn, Facebook. You don't have to, and I would say don't do all the platforms at once, because if you do that, what I've seen in the past is agents get really frustrated. They don't really learn one platform because they're all different. They just try to spread themselves across and get really no results. So pick something and then work with it for a number of weeks or a number of months until you really feel confident in what you're doing on that platform. Once again, learning about the algorithm, learning about what's working for other people, whether it's in the same industry or not. Just kind of mimic what's already working. I would start, if I only had one platform to use for my business, I would use LinkedIn. Now, somebody else might answer something differently, but that's going to be your choice. Whatever it is that you want to start with it, understand it, study it, and implement what you're learning on that platform to try to create results on an organic level. And then once you do, you can throw fuel on the fire with some paid advertising. And then complete one personal financing strategy with your upline or mentor. This is about starting to map out, what are my income goals? What am I trying to make here? How much equity am I trying to take, if that's the platform that you're working on as well? This is all about, like I said, creating income, creating clients, creating partners, and then trying to have a vision for what you want to take out of this phase into the next phase. So in phase two of the traction, you have a model alignment. This is your debt to wealth, student loans, be your own bank, tax-free retirement, guaranteed retirement, whatever it is that you're teaching. And once again, you can implement additional things in the business model, but just like the platforms, try to get good at something, one thing first, before you implement other things. If you try to learn all of this, what you're going to find is that you don't feel confident starting to have the activity. And then you'll say, hey, I got to learn more. And that's just a veiled way to procrastinate. Jump in, find something to do that you like talking about, and then grow from there. And then at phase two in the traction stage, you have a reflection prompt, just like you do in phase one. At this reflection prompt, where are you gaining traction right now? What's working for you? And then on the opposite side, what's one area that needs more activity or consistency? You're going to learn from your strengths and your weaknesses. You're going to learn from what's going right and what's going wrong. Don't neglect to go over to the other side and look at your weaknesses or what's not happening for you, because that can be a very, very important teaching moment or teaching factor, maybe even more important than the strengths and the gains. And then once you move into phase three, this is all about getting your first year really under your belt. And this is all about the growth and duplication stage. This is about growing your business, duplicating what you've done to other people, and starting to scale your business. What does scaling your business mean? It means your business is starting to work for you instead of you work for your business. At some point, you have the asset you can walk away from that still continues to pay. We have to get to that point. That's where phase three is all about. The focus in phase three, you guys, is leadership, leverage, and income growth. It's about going from, learning and developing to being the manager, being the mentor, being the coach. Just like you went through the process, you're going to help other people through this process as well. Now your business begins to take off. You've got a proven system that works now, and it's about repeating it and helping others do the same, whether it's on the client or the partner side. Once you've found something that works, you're building and growing your business. Now it's time to just repeat that, replicate, duplicate that, teach other people how to do it. The benchmarks at this phase will be a little bit different. We're moving into a leadership phase, right? This is about building a small team, 3 to 5 active partners. Notice I didn't say hundreds. You want to bring in people not by just sheer numbers. You want to bring in people that you think that will be successful, that are committed to this process, and that have a chance to be, what they want to be according to their goals. Does everything align? Then bring them in. If things don't align, don't bring somebody in just to say, hey, I've got a new partner. That's not going to be something that creates a smart working strategy. That creates a hard working strategy. And then you got to invest time, energy, resources into people that you probably shouldn't have brought in the first place. You want to conduct weekly team check-ins or accountability sessions. It's about becoming a leader, right? Becoming a coach, becoming a mentor for other people. And this is where you can start to branch out. Maybe you got some initial concepts down. Now you want to master advanced strategies like, using the pro and the offset to create arbitrage. There's a lot that we can do. And I've tried to create a model over the past years that gives you guys advantages on the partner and the client side. This is some of it. You want to begin cross-selling, or what we call stacking sales. The tech can lead to insurance. The insurance can lead to retirement. Our average client buys about 3 products from us, so it doesn't matter where they come in, where the conversation starts. They're going to get introduced to everything that we do. And then you want to establish a marketing automation or lead generation system. This is where you want to really hone in and create some things that will be advantageous for you and your team. If you can automate something, you should automate it something. If you can create leads, you should be creating leads. And an overflow of that lead generation will help you build your agency, because in this industry, leads are something that will attract agents into your business. At this point in phase three, the growth, you have a financial benchmark. You want to create consistently monthly income from multiple sources, clients, overrides, bonuses. And then you have, what can you delegate? What can you automate? Or what can you duplicate to scale your time and income? You only have so much time in the day. That is going to be something that you have to look at and create ways to cheat time. You cheat time by delegating, automating, and duplicating to scale and get more done in time than other people do by understanding the value of some of this stuff that we're talking about. Phase 4, this is leadership. This is build ownership, and this is legacy. So you moved out of that year 1 into, the first year and a half plus. Once you get to phase 4, this is all about creating ownership and legacy. You've been through the phases, you've been through the benchmarks. And if you do this successfully, this is a roadmap to get exactly what you want, because the focus at this point is on multiplication, mentorship, and asset building. So you're going through all these phases, and you can see how each one is different. Each one has different benchmarks. But if you successfully complete the benchmarks and move on to the next phase, you'll really see your business start to blossom and boom. This is where your efforts turn into equity. You're not just building your income anymore. You're building your actual value and your asset. Benchmarks in this phase, a little bit different. Develop at least one manager. Oh, now we're creating distribution, right? Now it's not just about us. We've got other sales team, virtual agencies that are popping up. You want to start to concentrate on creating management. Management is going to help you control distribution, because if I can talk to a group of managers and they can go talk to their group and we're all doing the same thing, it becomes easier than if I have to talk to everybody, right? And we're all doing different stuff. So develop at least one manager or future leader under you. Qualify for equity, qualify for agency bonuses. If you're going to be a leader, you should get rewarded for that. Our model heavily rewards leadership. So when you look at becoming a leader, you should expect with that additional responsibility, you're going to get rewarded for that. Begin training or mentoring new recruits regularly. Integrate some things like estate and long-term planning strategies into your offering. Continue to develop yourself. You never stop developing, yourself and what you're doing on a partner or client basis. And then create a written vision and a 5-year business plan. Notice this wasn't involved early on in the phases. Why? Because you don't really understand at that point what your written vision, what your 5-year business plan would be. Coming into 18 months, coming into the 2-year mark, now you can create a 5-year business plan that you know exactly over the next 60 months where you're going to take yourself, where you're going to take your partners, and where you're going to take your clients. Phase 4 is the leadership. You have a mindset benchmark again. Shift from success to significance to measure your impact, not just your income. So remember, go from making money and making income to making manager and making impact. And that's really the switch. And when you switch that over, you can't do it too early because it doesn't make sense. But once you follow these phases and you get into this leadership phase, your reflection prompt at this time is, who are you developing right now? How are you building something that's actually going to last? Remember, our business does good when things are going well in the economy. Our business does great when things aren't going well in the economy. So it doesn't matter what kind of economic, on a macroeconomic environment that we have, our business is either doing good or great if you position yourself accordingly, go through the phase, meet your benchmarks. The benchmark loop. Remember, once you understand how to develop yourself and develop others, you're constantly just pushing people through this benchmark loops. And then you're measuring success. Remember, measurement is a huge part of what we do. Benchmarks aren't just one-time goals, they're checkpoints. And when you start to understand what they're allowing you to view is where you are on your journey. How far away from you are your goals? How close are you to your goals? And the key is to revisit these every 90 days. We call them madman cycles. If you get into the habit of getting 90-day cycles where you review your progress, adjust your focus, celebrate your wins, and really concentrate not on yearly goals, but on quarterly goals and break those down into weekly and daily goals, you'll find that you beat your external, internal competition. You'll build self-confidence. You're able to start managing people and teaching them. Once you fix yourself, you can help other people fix themselves. What you measure grows. What you ignore fades. That's one of the most important things you can take out of this training. Besides all the phases of the benchmarks, you have to understand what's happening. Measure, you'll get more. If you measure clients, you'll serve more of them. If you measure growth, you'll become unstoppable. Reflection and commitment. This is where you guys really need to make it real. And making it real means writing it down, not just to have some random thought in your head, in your head 1 second, out the next. Take 2 to 3 minutes, not a big period of time. 3 benchmarks you'll hit in the next month. 1 new habit you'll commit to daily. 1 person you'll share this commitment with for your accountability. Remember, in those later phases, you're becoming the manager, you're becoming the leader. In the early phases, you've got people that you can count on. So if you guys want to share this with us, share it in a group format, whatever it is, the more that you can share with people, the more accountable that you'll need to be. Because if you just share it with yourself, it's easy to break that promise. If you share it with a lot of other people, you have to break that promise to a lot of other people. So share what you're trying to do, become accountable. When you finish this, sign and date it. This is how you go from intention to execution. There's a story one time of Jim Carrey before he became famous, wrote himself a check for like $1 million, put it in his wallet with a future date, and then it was in the wallet for so long it become crumbled and it was disintegrating. However, it came true. He looked at it every day. He visualized that he was going to make this money. You guys have to write things down, make it real, look at it every day, and understand it's your job to make all this happen. Closing motivation, guys, this is where we build confidence. Benchmarks build confidence, confidence builds consistency, and consistency is going to build your business. You're not in this thing just to survive. If you want to survive, you can go get a job and survive. This is about building something and thriving and teaching other people how to do the same. If you stick to your benchmark, stick to your phases, complete them, and stay consecutive and consistent, in the next 18 months, you'll look back and realize you just didn't build a business. You built a life by design. You have things like freedoms coming in, virtual freedoms, time freedoms from having a remote virtual business, but the financial freedom is going to come from you doing what we did today, which is going through the phases, going through the benchmarks, and planning things out to understand where you need to get to and then making it happen. Stay consistent, stay accountable, keep stretching your thinking, create your vision, and achieving your goals. And then once, like I said, you do this and you can teach other people how to do this, good things start to happen for you and your business.